Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining us for PropTalk, a property management podcast powered by Resman, which is an Inhabit company. I'm Elizabeth Francisco, and I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Inhabit. And I'm also a veteran of the multifamily industry with experience in operations as well as PropTech. And today, I am joined by Marcus Wilson, a client cultivator with Pivotal Impact Consulting. I am so excited. There's a history here for Marcus and I because we have been communicating and I actually think you were the very first company back with your prior engagements that we ever demoed Resman to. The opportunity for us to finally get to work together has been, we have been in contact and staying in touch for so long.
Yeah.
So I am super stoked. I knew I'd find a way someday, and I'm super excited. So I was going to just tell our audience just a little bit about you, because I've done my homework as well as knowing you. But things that I was really impressed with is that, and I agree with, is that you are a visionary technology leader, which is probably why you took that early meeting to begin with.
Correct.
And you're known for developing clear, ethical, and ambitious roadmaps. And that you inspire teams into immediate action and bring value to your customers and your clients very quickly. I think it's also incredible to see someone with such a technology mindset that has such a strong passion, if you will, for developing and mentoring high-performance teams. To being a people-first person in technology is very important. And I'm just really glad to have you here and joining us, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today because we're going to be talking about some of that.
Yeah. I'm really amped about getting in here and talking about the people.
Yes. We're going to talk today about how you can align people and processes so that they complement one another and not work against one another. So I love this topic. And once again, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come up here and do this with me in person. I know a lot about you, but if you wouldn't mind, I think I wanted to start just giving you a chance to kind of talk to us a little bit about, your history in multifamily. Like, where did you come from? How did you get here?
By accident. Just to be
shocker. Yeah. I've never heard that before from anyone in the industry.
Yeah, I really started off I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and went to just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, with the University of West Georgia College, University of West Georgia. And go Braves. We used to be the Wolves, but we're now the Braves. Okay. Whatever, you know how that goes. And I got a inbox from a recruiter. And she was telling me about a company down in Florida that is looking for somebody who knows AMSI. I was like, do you know anybody? That's me, Yeah. And I went in and, talked to her, sent her my resume and then I talked to the president at the time. His name was Taylor Rissmiller. And about a day or two later, I had a plane ticket in my inbox.
Yeah.
And I went down to Florida, met him there and met the company, and the rest is multifamily history, Yeah. So, that's how that started off. And
so I've heard a lot of journeys about how you accidentally fall into multifamily. Yours might be one of the more creative, one of the more interesting and winding journeys I've heard. The starting point's a lot different than other.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But it's a great industry. And once you're in, you cannot get out, as we all know.
Yeah.
So what is it you're doing right now? Let's talk about that for just a second. Like, talk to me about Pivotal and your consulting.
Yeah, well, it started off when this past year, I took some time off, starting in end of April, May. Throughout my life, I've watched where we brought in new technology and things of that nature, and we've always come in with these new solutions, what we're going to be doing, but nobody ever mentioned that to how their staff or how their company was going to change for the people.
Yes.
And the clear guidance, the clear strategy or vision just wasn't pushed down to middle management or the people on the front line. And
a lot of people are afraid of technology as well. And I'm sure this still happens out there across the industry, but I know when we were in our early days, we had a lot to overcome, period, because of the competition in the space and the perception and brand credibility and amplifying the brand. But One of the hardest things I remember we had to get over was just the fear of the cloud, because
Yeah.
we were actually one of the first property management platforms architected in the cloud.
Correct.
And that was like the biggest hurdle to get over. And then even to this day, we every now and then we come across, a customer that and partner that's going to, go in on Resman, thank goodness. And, but we'll have a handful of people, one or two in the organization that, it's very obvious they're very fearful about the change. They, I think people immediately can kind of, insecurities make you fear that this technology, the adoption of technology means that I'm not going to have a job later.
Right.
So I know that you're doing consulting, which I think is a great fit, and people are very lucky to have you looking at their tech stacks and their processes. But not everybody's always open-minded to this. So I was curious, because I wrote this down when we were talking, when it comes to those beginning conversations, right? When maybe they've come to you, maybe you've just had the introduction. How do you start this conversation for an existing management company? And we all know, if you've been around the industry, every management company really has a belief in their own secret sauce. Some are more similar to others than they might be aware of. That's my nice way of saying that, but it's true. And they don't always know they have a challenge. Right. So what does that look like? If you could just characterize, like, how do you start that conversation about to a new potential client or somebody that's contracted with you about starting to think about it just to begin with, and how do you assess it? Like, how do you get them to buy in?
I try to understand what's actually happening, within the company.
Okay.
But I do want to know first and foremost, where is this going? Where are you going as a company? Your mission, your strategy, first and foremost. What are you trying to accomplish? The reason I do that is because there are times that the processes just don't match up with what you're trying to do. The processes in the company, they're dated. Most companies were started off small, and they're still using same process that they've been using 10 or 15 years later, and the person, or maybe 8 to 10 years later, because, technology changes like that,
Yeah, we are charged with keeping up with it, so yes.
Correct. So, and a lot of times when you hear about it, and I will just ask just to see if there's really anything there, because what I'm noticing is that sometimes strategy, mission, and vision, core values, things of that nature, are just pages on a website, but it's really not something that's ingrained into the company.
I know that you're very passionate about it, and I can't remember what conference it was at, but I know that you participated in a conference, because I saw your session, and I was really impressed with it. And it was called "Creating a Culture of Data-Driven Decision Makers."
Correct.
And I love that. I love the end of that in particular, about a data-driven decision makers, creating a culture. And when I hear that, I'm not going to the top half of the organization, I'm going to the bottom half when you say that. And I love seeing someone that, like we've talked about now, that comes from an IT background, that embraces technology for all that it can be, but doesn't want to lose sight of the people.
Correct. Using technology as a tool, and technology used to be a tool. Let's just say that. Years, and when we first got into it, maybe 20 years ago, a little bit, it was a tool to use to process things faster, which it still is, make things better. But now, since we've got into AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, now it's sometimes a gatekeeper in a sense. It's being used to, how can I say it, make a quality of life better. It's like an enhancement to life now.
Yeah, an enhancement to your work life.
Exactly.
Because good technology can even educate.
Absolutely.
Where, you're having people run multi-million-dollar assets. Why wouldn't you want them educated? But that's one of the things we, unfortunately, just depending on the size of the company, not everybody has those resources. So I completely agree. You're speaking my language. Get me all excited now about it's more than a tool. It's
an investment. It's an investment in the company. That's really what it is. An investment in the company and your people. That's what it is. Is leveraging it to make life better, to make the processes better. It's about not making your staff feel so overwhelmed. But see, this is the thing. We don't get that message to the middle management and front lines. They're thinking they're so protective. I mean, and rightfully so. You've been doing something for a long time, 3 or 4 years, 5 years. It's yours. It's who you are. It's what you've been doing.
Hmm.
You know, this is why I get paid, because I do this so well.
Yeah.
Well, it's not fitting in with the vision of where we're going. It's not, and not necessarily that, but meaning it's not
They
fitting.
don't understand how it fits in.
Exactly. They don't understand how it fits in. But when technology comes in to say, hey,
Hmm.
we can take these minute steps, we can speed this process up. This is all about scaling. We can speed this, we can make it a little bit more efficient. There's some human errors that happen every now and then. Not necessarily saying they happen all the time, but that's what like front lines, middle management, sometimes they're not hearing the benefits.
Hmm.
They're not hearing the benefits, because they're like, I mean, when you really look at it, they're going to ask, well, what's in it for me? What about me? What about my dreams? That's one of the things I said in my things, going back to Jennifer Hudson when she
Hmm.
played in
Dream
Dreamgirls.
Girls? Yeah.
It was that thing. She said, what about me? I can't sing, but I just love
I
doing
think
it.
it's the first time we've had singing on
Yeah.
the Prop Talk.
Well, I'm about
I
to-
thought you did great, though.
What about me? What about what I need?
Yeah.
What about my dreams? I remember when I saw that recently, several months ago or last year, I was like, yeah, exactly. That's what everybody is saying. What I wanted to move up, and this was my groundbreaking process that I was going to use to do.
I've mastered this, damn
Yes,
it.
I've mastered this. Now you want to come in and change it?
Mhm.
But what we are not doing is concentrating on the unforeseen or unexpected benefits that technology is going to bring for not only the company, but for that individual right there. We
Yeah.
don't focus on what this is going to do for them. This new technology, this new process that we're coming, it's going to make your resume even better than it was. And the thing about it, and not only your skill set even better, but are we even investing into developing that person to be able to do that? To adopt that technology. It's not only just the company adopting, it's the people in there adopting, the person who's going to be using. That's where your resistance come from. And I would say it's probably a lot of technology companies out there who is hoping when they come in that they're going to get the feedback needed to make the enhancements to their solution that's going to make it work for that company. And because there's resistance, they don't get that back. And sometimes after 6 months, 3 months on a pilot, it's not good for us. And they can tell you every reason why it didn't work, but meaning the technology company, well, we didn't get the feedback. We didn't get the stuff we needed.
Yeah.
Because they work on a whole different platform. They work on a
Yeah.
whole different, they work in an agile mindset, in iterations.
Mhm.
They want to get stuff out, value out, and fast to the customer. I like snapping when I say that. That's how we want it. They want to get out, value out to the customer quick, fast, and easily. So they're trying to turn around and get things back, just like these apps here.
Mhm.
Imagine if we didn't get updates, but once every 5 to 6 months, like the good old
Oh,
days.
yeah.
Now these things are coming out weekly,
Daily.
weekly.
Depends on the app.
I'm
Daily.
like, dang, I just got to update whatever. But that's what they do. They have developers and everything. They're listening to the user stories. They're running it through their Kanban boards or their other boards or whatever, having an agile mindset, and they're going through and they're getting the fixes out.
Well, and I think that goes back to anxieties and intimidation and fear about technology, and I see that in the affordable space. So since we last saw you, we've had a pretty good affordable product. I'm proud of it in the space, and we have in real time, whether it's in the early stages before we've even closed the deal, you can already see that the heels dug in. We've always done it this way. The fear of change is paralyzing to some people, to where even after that decision is made, it's hard to watch someone perception and anxiety become their own reality. And that goes back to how you engage in the people, because what are they going to get out of this other than, oh, by the way, we're going to put all this extra work on you. You got to change your software. And yeah, it's going to be great afterwards. What does that really mean for me?
Even going back to what you just said, we've always done it like this. Now, that is the term used that I've seen when strategy and vision has not been communicated down. And there is none.
Great point.
This is how we always do it. Well, they're not looking, and they're not, how can I say it, being open to looking at what do I need to do in order to meet the goals, the objectives for tomorrow, for this year. And that's where it becomes that culture. Culture is going to depict the mindset of the teams.
Yep. Culture's not what you say it is. It's what you actually have.
Exactly. Exactly is what you actually have. That is going to shape the mindset of the team. Is it going to be collaborative? Are they going to be open to change? They're going to be more agile, fast thinking. Are they going to be more customer centric? It's going to hard to be doing all that with this is the way we've always done it type of attitude. So the culture is going to affect the mindset, and the mindset is going to determine the capabilities and skills of your teams, meaning capabilities to learn, the capabilities and willingness to learn. That's the big word. I got to put it at willingness to learn. And so they would just keep the same skills that they've been using for that process that they've been doing. And they won't look down the road to see where I be. But then it also comes in. Now, this is another thing that I've run into too over the past few years. We have not invested in developing our teams, really. Even if from just teaching soft skills for being a leader, a manager, or whatever. What is that when they're giving quarterly reviews or biannual reviews? I had the company that I worked for. I'm going and plug it out there. What's up, at Veneer Living years ago? Steve and David Vaquito were I can't say enough about them.
Yeah.
I get a little choked up too because I spent 9 years there and it was very good.
Yeah.
And David, he was very good at setting that road path for development, what you need to do, where you need to be, and identifying those areas where we need to be and aligning that with the goals of the company.
As you were talking, I just kept thinking, man, I get excited when we start talking shop because I'm like, oh, I have a property management company.
Okay.
Yeah, no, nobody's like, who says that?
Yeah.
I say that. But thinking about tying everything back to the strategy and the vision for your company, and leveraging technology, interweaving that into the conversation, but giving back to your people, and taking that time out, because I've seen we've had a handful of customers over the years that embrace this concept of a technology champion. Because you make these big decisions, and especially something like what we do. There is, we always say, changing your PMS is like, changing out the engine of a 747 up in the air while it's loaded with people and not.
That's a good analogy.
It is. So it used to be. Technology helps us too, by the way.
Right.
And that can help you because that process is better than it used to be.
Okay.
But it's still not. There's never going to be a completely pain-free.
I'm just imagining this plane just diving down because they didn't hook the engine up right. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, guess what? Welcome to my world.
Okay.
that's almost every conversation we have when we're talking about selling, a new platform. But having those champions involved so that you give back to your team, that you show that, do they really walk away understanding why you made this investment?
That is the key.
What is it? What's in it for me is what you kept saying it, right?
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
If they understand what the strategy, mission is, then it aligns with it. They'll go along, well, this is what we said we were going to do. This is what we said we were trying to do.
Maybe you do need to do something internally to carve out that bandwidth for somebody to kind of be that project champion, that technology champion that is helping sell the value back to each individual contributor and what it means to them. Well, but I don't see a lot. I mean, we recommend it. We push for it. Sometimes our team will even step in and try to do it for you. But why do you think there's still so much hesitancy about that?
Well, that's a great question because I was just thinking about that. That's one of the things that we help do, come in and try to show how can I say it, to the teams, to where it's going to change. We show them that unexpected benefit or value that they're going to obtain with this new tech. We show them the plus side of it for them. What does this mean for you? And I think if a lot of technology companies, or how can I say it, prop tech companies, whatever, they always put that value as far as the process and company's concerned. But the individual is where they kind of, stray away. If somebody saw that what this is going to do for me and not necessarily for the company, when you start looking at, the company will be able to have a huge return on ROI. They will be able to process applicants faster, whatever that is. You would get better leads coming in, more valuable leads coming in, or whatever. So when you look at that, when you don't focus on the people who are going to be using it, doing the process, managing it, and everything, then that's where they're going to hold on to whatever they've been doing, because are you trying to get rid of me? The first thing they ask is, what about my job? What are you trying to get? No, we're not trying.
No, we've literally had this conversation. Well, I haven't, but my team has shared with me. They've literally had this conversation in the last couple of months with a company.
Right.
With specific individuals at a company. And it's
and I think it's so important, because especially if they're valued doing the process that they're doing now, they have a lot of knowledge of what they're doing. So, and since we're moving into such a data-driven society, data-driven company, data-driven decision makers, that knowledge is very of the process and what happens. That knowledge is key to understanding the data that's going to be coming out of this new technology that's there. Because this person is going to be able to, if they're trained on how to use it, understands what it's supposed to do, and able to manage, meaning move from processor to managing the process with this technology.
Oh, that was well said.
Yeah.
Somebody note that.
Yeah, there it is. Once they get there, now you're looking at understanding. Now they can ask questions, very valuable questions about the data, the integrity of the data. They can understand if these numbers don't, or the information doesn't look right that's coming in. They can go back into the process, the old way of doing things, not going back to it, but just ask those questions to the analyst or whoever that data is collecting. Say, is this right? This doesn't look correct. Based on how the numbers that I used to get. Is it great? Wow, this is a huge increase. Wow, how did that happen? Sometimes people would just go, they'll see the numbers. Oh, we've got a 30% increase over the past 3 months. Let's go. We're doing really well, and come to find out, it really wasn't what they thought it was.
Yeah.
The information there really wasn't, the data wasn't good.
Yeah.
The integrity of it wasn't good. So,
I've seen that. The other side of that too is there's, if everybody's bought into the right goals, because you talked about what's in it for me. And I think when you're selling your team, right, you have to get buy-in on the company's overarching goals and financial goals, strategy. You can see how somebody out on the front lines is like, oh, great. Somebody that I hardly ever interact with just chose this software, app or platform, whatever it is for me. And at the end of the day, great. They're going to get ROI that's going back to some investor. But what about me? But the reality is selling and having them understand what is that allowing the company to do as a whole, and what kind of opportunities does that provide for our teams, not today, but tomorrow.
Right.
Because you have to make those investments today. You have to, whether it's, being a leader and ROI back to the investors. Yeah, sometimes that takes sacrifice by teams, right? At various points in the journey. But when you're able to deliver that and you build that reputation, then you have more value, which allows you to pick up more business that is then in turn going to allow me to provide you with more opportunities. Right. But you're giving me some good ideas to even think about how we as a technology partner can help our customers shape that conversation with their own teams. Right.
And that's a good thing, because one of the things I've noticed too, managing or project managing these implementations, that's a big thing too. And that's one of the things I've done over the last, 20 years or so. And I've done huge projects, again, going back to Pfizer, Home Depot, PC refresh. It was back in the day, but call a PC refresh, and now it's just called changing out your PCs or whatever. Got an award for it, the PC refresh reward. But the biggest thing there when you're managing a project is making sure when you start off, you have that project charter or why you're doing this project, and you have to feed that out to the masses as well. You know, it has to align with strategy and align with goals.
Yeah.
And that's something and if it doesn't, people are going to ask. If I was a project manager, if I saw where it did not align with what you're trying to do, your strategy and goals, and I said, well, this doesn't align with what you're going forward. Are you sure you want to do this? Because this can take you around a whole different road. And a lot of times that has happened. You know, if everybody's not following the vision, mission, strategy, roadmap, if there is one, then what you have are department heads and everybody going out making decisions based on what will benefit them, make their department, make their things.
They're not aligned.
Good. They're not aligned. And what you have then is just everybody's pulling the company in a different direction. The culture then becomes combative, you know, of, well, we did this. Or we do it this way. You need to check with them to see if it's right over there. You know,
Yes.
I went through that a little while ago, but I'll just say I went through that. And I tell you, it was probably one of the most deflating things to deal with because everybody was pointing the finger at the other and nobody wanted to take ownership. Not only that, they wanted to protect what they were doing, their process or whatever. And all I was trying to do is I just want to make it better. That's it. I'm telling you, if you listen, I can show you where this is going to help you out. Yeah. It's going to bring so much time to your day. You know, you're going to be able to focus on some items or tasks, actions that's going to bring more value to the client, your department, or whatever the process is or whatever. You know, that's where you want to put your focus. It was a challenge because sometimes if they were very pessimistic, he's just saying something. They're lying, you know.
Yeah.
I've ran into that too. But that's where you really have to go in and do a workflow diagram and really show them. I've gotten into that. Man, I love doing workflow diagrams. But once you show like a value stream of all the entire process, which can take a long time to draw out a value stream. But let's just say one part of the process. When you draw it out and you show them the areas of inefficiencies and you show them, like I would do it in a swim lane, like whether it was, let's say, accounting, development, and operations, you know, something like that. And I would show right here, you see where the process is. This is where the inefficiencies are happening, right here. You know, when you show them that, they'll get it. And then we'll start asking more questions like, okay, how do we make this better? And then that's when you point to that person, you say, this, with the new way of doing it, you'll become more of managing this part instead of doing this part. You know, being a doer, you'll be a manager rather than a doer. You have the title manager.
What'd you say? Instead of you moved to managing the process instead of being a processor.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So you were processing. Now you're managing the process. Look at that. What would you rather be? A manager of a process or the process? You know?
No, I love that.
You know, and that's when they were like, you know, and when they saw that, they saw that, then everything, all right, I'm ready to do this. You know, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to move forward. And a lot of times, that may be a little bit time consuming, but I tell you, in the end, everything will move forward because then she will see the benefits. I keep saying she, but they will see the benefits and they will have a better team player because they're all about, hey, I'm all about this change now. You know, it's I get to leave early. I get to do, well, not leave early, but I get to do less.
Hey, sometimes, I'm just going to say, after somebody does a property management platform rollout, I'm just saying, you want to give them an afternoon, let them leave early.
Right.
Once it's done, they probably are in debt.
Right.
And then some.
So that's what we do. I come in and assess all the cultures, assess the people, their skill sets, or whatever. I kind of line out what your challenge is. When you do this area right here, this department, this person probably going to be your challenge right there. So it's almost like managing stakeholder engagement, you know, knowing the people who are going to be standoffish and not get involved, but have the influence to come in and mess it up at the end. It's all about understanding and looking down the road to seeing who is into it, engaging who's not really into it, and who can really have an impact once it gets there.
Yeah.
So
I'm guessing, I'm just going to take a stab at this. Simon Sinek fan?
Yeah.
The art of why.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I like now the whys. That's another little task there I learned through some learning. It's through some classes of project management and stuff.
Hmm.
It's the 5 whys. I think that's they use it a lot of ways. It's when you trying to figure out the root cause of an issue or
Okay.
something. And the thing is that you continue to ask why 5 times until you get to it. Like, if someone says,
Our support staffing model.
why? Well, what was wrong with it?
It wasn't working.
Why it wasn't working?
Why it wasn't working? Because our customers weren't happy. Our customers weren't being served
Well, why aren't they being served?
because we weren't being responsive,
Well, why aren't we being responsive?
because we didn't have good processes,
Well, why don't we have good process?
because we weren't listening to our customer. and we weren't listening to our internal customer. And yeah.
Yeah,
And you keep asking why, because it gets down to it's not that our support model. Well, our support model needed to be changed, and thank goodness we did make that investment. But yeah, as you get down to more granular levels, you understand that the reality was, and what it actually boiled down to, is a technology change that we had made took us backwards, not forwards.
Correct.
And the series of whys got us to that point. So I'm just going to say shout out to the entire Resman support team that lived through that and helped us through it, and the customers that hung in there with us, because that was definitely a growing pain time period for the organization.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, asking why, because you keep going down. It's not the surface level. You got to go deeper and deeper.
Right. And I think sometimes we do stop on the surface level.
Yes.
We stop and just say, well, it didn't work. It just doesn't work, whatever. And you get rid of it. And I've seen that happen so many times too, as a support person, as a leader in support. One of the things I would say in leader in support, I would go back to the people, is that anybody who's support analysts, support technicians or whatever, in technology, I want to say we're more than just technical support. We're also like counselors too.
Oh, yes. Yes, you are.
How many, there's so much that you know about the company and the morale or whatever, because they're coming in and they're frustrated. First, they're frustrated with what they have to do when something's not working. Then the staff sometimes team will get on the phone and they will, open up. And you have to, one thing about being in support is that you do have to keep your word, as far as you're not going to tell anybody. You don't want to spread, how could I say this? If they're not feeling good about direction of the company, if they're not feeling good about direction of the job, a lot of times you will find out in support.
Okay.
Support knows who's not feeling good or who's not.
Because the customers
they're venting.
Yeah. Like a hairdresser.
Yeah, like a hairdresser. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I get surprised.
So
every now and then I hear things.
Yeah. So it comes down like that, and you learn a lot about what's missing.
Yeah.
That's when I always say middle management and front lines, because that's where a lot of the displeasure and things come from, and that's where a lot of your
is in your bottom line, whether you realize it or not.
It is,
and market conditions like we just had. I think, like, that's where I really hope that we don't fall back to old habits, and we don't stop prioritizing our frontline teams, because there was opportunities to make up for any lost ground in 20. We also had rising costs. There was a lot of pressure on the management companies and operations. But as you start getting back into the grind, we can't forget that it's been an unusual 2 years, and that affects people in a very real way. And those are the very people that are in your company and on your front lines. And if they're not supported, they don't have the things to be successful, or they feel, the quiet quitting.
Yes.
That's there's so many articles on that right now. I get thousands, literally.
Yeah, and that's where you just being in support, and like you said, the quiet quitting and things of that nature. They share that where they are, sentiments, that camaraderie, the sentiments. They share a lot of that when you call them to resolve an issue that they have, and they'll open up about some things or whatever.
I think it's world fatigue. That's what I call it now.
Yeah,
it's like you can't forget about that. You got to stay focused on our teams and how we're going to help support them. And
Yes, it's so much. It's been so much change since COVID. COVID has done.
well, and now we're getting ready for. It's interesting because I'm getting ready to do an economic market webinar next week, and these headlines are starting about multifamily.
Yeah.
And we already saw flattened rent growth, and there was already the teasing headlines in the fourth quarter about where the industry's going, what are we going to see. And it's interesting because you start reading these articles, and the first couple of sentences are shock and awe, and to people who are new in the industry, and there's a lot of new entrants, new property managers, owners, investors that have come in the last 10 years, let's say, and legitimately haven't been through an economic downturn. So there's a reaction to that. And it's funny when you really dig into some of the data, and granted, I'm still in my own process of researching what specifically I want to point out next week. But some of what was supposed to be shock and awe seems very much like what I used to think was normal back in the day of running the assets and 3 to 5% rent growth, or NOI growth, not the same as double digits in a down market. That's, we're still a very good industry. We're still a very resilient industry.
Yeah.
But for people who haven't been through it, it can be very alarming.
So, well, let me ask you this, because you bring up a good question. I was thinking, why do you think there are so many people coming into the industry?
Well, I think there's a lot of, for the last 10 years, I think diversifying. I think coming out of the Great Recession, you had a lot of people lost their entire retirements, putting things in the stock market, that was really, we took a hit too, don't get me wrong. It's just 2008, 9, and 10 were pretty rough. But we were resilient. We came out, we were able to make up those losses. We had great, gains for 2 or 3 years, back double digits back then as well. But not necessarily sustainable, just more like level setting, I would say. So, this is a good industry. People always need housing. So I think we're always going to be that industry that is going to attract a pretty steady stream of investments, because and we know we have a housing shortage, that, affordable housing, but just in general, the number of rental units that need to be built and added to the supply, we've been in a deficit now for 10 years. So that's a big driving factor.
That is.
And it's funny because there's so much talk about affordable housing, which is a whole nother podcast, and the lack thereof. But the reality is increased supply and overage of supply really impacts demand. And when the demand goes down because you've got oversupply, prices come down.
Right.
And so then that drives up that will in and of itself help promote more affordable housing. You'll have more affordable housing in markets. So, but that was a different subject. You get me excited. That was a button. You can't pull Chatty Cathy's, cord on that one.
Okay.
Because we'll go and get started. I think there was like one last question I was going to ask just for our conversation, because again, there's headlines. I know that when we have seen economic downturns in the past, that's, there's and even with the beginning stages of the pandemic, there's a freeze up, right? We're going to everybody hold tight. Let's see what's going to happen. We don't want to make any changes. People are more reluctant to invest in upgrading technology. Kind of want to ride the storm, if you will. And I've always thought that was to me, it's actually a backwards way of looking at it, because I think when things get tough is when you need to be able to bring your A game.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the tools that empower your teams to deliver and be A players, then in the long run, you're hurting yourself. Maybe you ride out the storm and, you come out on the other end, but for your competitors that are still investing, that are still embracing technology, always looking for a way to enhance efficiencies, optimization, looking for, centralized leasing, centralized offices, and operational practices, they're going to be a step ahead of you. But that seems like it's always such a tough conversation, because it's like we have something and it's good enough.
Right.
Or it's crazy to me. I can't tell you if I could have a microphone out on the trade show floor, because every year, I have been going to NAA now for 20-something years, but as a PropTech supplier, the things I hear directly from frontline staff, and I will hear the most painstaking, challenges whether maybe their systems aren't set up right, they haven't been trained. I'm not saying it's the platform's fault, but there's such a disgruntled like attitude and response, and I'll hear very specific examples, and it's like, well, why don't you bring your supervisors by, or why don't you bring somebody by? We'll show them how it can be different. It's like, oh, wow, my voice doesn't matter.
Right.
They don't care what we have to deal with out on site. And I've literally I hear that every single year. And so when we're coming into the economic, the change in the economy right now that we know is happening. When you're consulting, how do you tackle that conversation where it's about pinching pennies versus, again, investing in the things that will support your strategic vision, even though you didn't actually use the word leverage or technology in it? It's a key part.
Well,
so how do you have that conversation?
Well, that's a great question, because that's actually one of the things I'm working on now is scaling works both ways. When you scale so that you can manage growth, scale that you can get through tough times, because you become lean. You lean, you operate more efficiently, streamline processes, which cuts down on time and getting product or value out to your customers fast. It's about continuously improving, continuously working on value delivery. And so you should be doing that regardless. You should always be continuously looking at how you can improve your process. And that's what kind of shocks me, that people want to stop. No, this is the time when you really need to look at how can we tighten the ship up a little bit more.
Is it wrong for me to just say preach?
Yeah, no, it won't. Yeah.
He's gonna sing again.
So really and truly, that's again, scaling works both ways. Scale works both ways, to manage growth and to get through the hard times. It tightens the buttons up.
Yeah, it's funny that Richard Branson, that famous quote, he's been quoted for this a million times about the conversation he has about the concerns that his leadership team has about what if we invest in our people and they leave, and then his response back was, what if we don't and they stay?
Yeah,
have you heard
exactly?
that?
Yeah.
I think
I've heard
it's the same thing with the technology.
Correct.
What if you don't invest in your technology?
Right.
Because what if you do? There's gains, there's efficiencies, better the business. What are you going to be left with when you don't?
Good question, and not good question, but a good statement, because you look at just what happened in COVID. For all the companies who weren't on Teams or Zoom or still using phones, still having to come in the office, look at what they had to do in order to get people communicate. You get to communicate just based on those people who are working home. Yeah. They had to buy laptops, they had to buy monitors, you name it. They had to do a lot to get just people up and not scale. Like, I'm gonna tell you one thing, like the phone is becoming to be, having a phone on the desk at your office is coming to be almost obsolete soon, I would say.
Oh yeah,
because you can actually
through your laptop.
Yeah, go through your laptop, has headsets and everything, and then you can switch it over to your mobile when you're going out, leaving or whatever. There's so many cloud-based phone solutions that are out there, Ring Central and so many others, and Teams and integrating those, and integrating those products within Teams and Zoom and all that. So imagine for those companies who went and did some scaling and got their teams together, got the Zoom, and started using Office 365 in the cloud and stuff. Yeah. When they went to it, going through COVID was just, all right, well, we can just do it from home. Everything's in the cloud anyway. That moved their servers.
Versus the ones who were literally shut down and trapped.
Exactly.
Yeah, we saw that.
I've even heard of companies like, well, we can't cut checks because everybody's got COVID, and, they couldn't pay any bills for a while. Okay. Imagine if they would have leveraged the outsourced checking company that they have in the softwares that can do bill pay or whatever. Those are just things you have to constantly look. How can we make this process better?
Yep. Be ready for the unexpected.
And actually, during the downtime, that's actually, I want to say, probably one of the best times, because you're not so busy that you can really focus on those. Some things are going to, during the downtime, it's going to curtail the demand for certain things or whatever. demand for services, demand for products, or whatever. So this is actually a good time to look at, hey, why don't we look at our processes and see how what we're doing wrong? How can we make it better?
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited. So what our audience doesn't know is you're going to get a lot more into detail about assessing your company, assessing technology, leveraging, your technology you have at hand, and you're doing a session for us at Resmania.
Yay!
So I know, I'm so stoked. I was gonna say, you found out. Well, I think you pretty much knew you were being accepted because we were going back and forth with the description edits. But we're super excited about that. So
I am too.
This is just the tip of the iceberg about how you can approach the business and how you help people in that arena. So I look forward to seeing you work with, our audience, our base. Because especially our long-term customers too, like just carving out that time from the early adopters to, and thank goodness we have so many that are still with us to this day. But even they are still sometimes surprised at what all is at their fingertips now that they have just not kept up with. And they're paying for it. They might as well be using it.
Right. You would be surprised and diving into the technology a little bit. You'd be surprised I would say most companies aren't even using maybe just up to 60-65% of the technology's potential.
Yeah.
There's a whole 40, maybe even more. I'm being not concerned. I'm being thrifty with it. If that's the right term or whatever. But I'm being gracious with
conservative.
Yeah. Well, no, conservative would be. We use conservative in so many different ways these days. But I guess I'm not telling the full story. I think it may be less than 60%, in other words.
Oh, you're being generous.
Yeah, generous. That's it. That's it. Yeah, the opposite. I'm being generous sometimes when I'm saying 65%. But some of the good ones really go at it, and they go down and they look at the technology and they say, I want to use all of it.
Yep.
And you use it to the best. And that's when you find those, how can I say, unexpected benefits and value that technology brings.
Yes.
Or whatever. Not only for the people, for the company. Yeah.
Yeah. Just go, like designate your internal champion that, is the one that's going to be responsible for, synthesizing release notes and enhancements. That's like, oh, this is a big win for our company.
Mm-hmm.
You may have unexpected ROI and ROE at your fingertips right now. And I can tell you our base, I know you do. Because I still run into some of you, we do that. They're like, no.
Well, how do you do that's a good question that I want to ask. I mean, because those releases, sometimes they can come out and it's like 2 or 3 pages long, sometimes even more, and it's a lot.
Well, I don't want to give our secrets away, but we used to do things like that, and we have found a different way that is integrated into the products. That's all I'll say. So
won't you let everybody know your secrets?
Yeah. Well, you'll see it at Resmania. All right. Well, before we go, we do this one little thing. I don't think you saw this, but I do a little rapid fire with all of our PropTalk guests.
Oh gosh.
And it's all personal, so it's all fun stuff.
Okay.
So people can get to know Marcus.
Okay. Okay.
So first off, this is the first question: is do you have a pet?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If your pet could talk, what would your pet say about you?
He could sure rub a good back and give me bacon in the morning.
So your pet is spoiled.
Yeah, she's a Pomeranian, Lily. Yep.
Oh, what a sweet little name.
Yeah.
You're wrapped, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell. Instantly. What is not a big deal to most people, but is like torture to you?
I'm going to be honest with you. This last loss by the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. I've been having the worst 20 years of my life right about now. Every fall, I could take this cup and just throw it. I am so mad right now.
You're so mad.
I am absolutely mad. And I remember when I was coming here, I posted on my Facebook. I said, hey, I'm on my way to Dallas for QB tryouts.
For QB.
No, just playing. I'm going to podcast, whatever, that sort of thing. But
what's a famous the mantra of the Dallas Cowboy football fan? Next year will be our year.
Yeah, I'm tired of that. I mean, I want it now. It's gotten to the point where, I mean, I could talk about Dallas all day, but it's.
You probably don't want to know who my team is then, because I'm shameful and obnoxious.
Who's your team?
Well, the Patriots. I am.
Tom Brady's gone, so everybody's cool now. Yeah, they good,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a Belichick fan, but I'm also a GOAT fan. I mean, how could you not be?
I know you. Yeah. But you know what? I have to
some of
say
us
this.
are just used to winning. Is all my real point was.
Oh, excuse me. You gonna throw it there? Okay.
Including not this year, but I'm just saying. Tampa.
Yeah. Well,
Super Bowl.
I mean, everybody always tells us, but about our 5 Super Bowls that we had in the past, they always go back, and even the teams that haven't won, even the fans whose team has never won a Super Bowl, gets to tell us, well, the last time we could see your Super Bowl, we couldn't even watch your Super Bowl because we don't have VHS anymore.
Oh.
They'll say that, something like that. Well, I wish you won one that I could really
That's funny.
watch.
All right, so Marcus, my other question is, what is something that people often get wrong about you?
That I am too serious. Yeah. I was told that when I was I was told that for years. Probably because I was just so serious about the work. When they met me, I was just wanting to get the system implemented, and I'm like heads down because I know it's going to be a long.
You're a machine.
Yeah,
you're
I was
laser focus.
But what they found out is that I'm through the conferences, when I was emceeing the conferences or hosting and my sessions, that I'm really fun. Have a lot of get the crowd going, that sort of thing. I'm a fun-loving guy, I guess.
No, I know this. I will vouch for him because I know this because we have laughed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So my last one is, what's the best advice you ever got?
Ooh, what's the best advice I've ever got? Now you got me thinking. Dude, don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah.
So you're a perfectionist is what that tells me.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I
know
gotta
exactly
get it right.
what that means. I might have heard that advice myself at one point.
Yeah. When I stopped doing that, and I still do, but when I stop doing that, I take more of a whatever happens type approach to it. But it's more of a faith-based approach. I've done all that I can, whatever happens.
Well, my dear, you have been an amazing guest.
Thank you.
I loved our conversation.
Me too.
I think we went to places we wanted to go, but I also feel like we dove into some different areas that I'm really excited about, because nothing would make me happier than to start seeing vision statements and mission statements out there on property management websites, the About Us page, where they talk about their technology.
Yes.
So I'm hopeful. I'm gonna say my prayers. I'm gonna be optimistic, and I'm gonna see that in the future. So,
yeah, and actually be about it too.
Yes. Amen. So, well, guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode and that you'll join us again next time. Be sure to subscribe to PropTalk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about Resman's property management platform and get more insight into the multifamily ecosystem, check out myresman.com. Bye, guys. See you next time.